Reporting to you live from somewhere in a fortified bunker on the McMillan estate, it is Takes from the Fog, Reddit's best and worst arguments, presented to you by me, Schizo. Hey everyone, I just wanted to, this video's got a little bit of a different format in that it's more me covering a few different topics instead of focusing on one thing. Some of it's kind of news, but I was kind of inspired by just looking at the Reddit and having some opinions about things that I was reading. I have a lot more saved, so if people end up liking this type of video, I might put this kind of thing out more, because I often see things said in the community, and there's only so much that you could say while having a point in a comment or a reply, I feel like, and I think that in some cases it would just be nice for me to kind of respond to those things that I read in a video format. So there's a couple here, and well, let's just hop right the fuck into it then. So I'd really like to start this with the biggest elephant in the room, the most recent news that we've been hit with, which is that, well, Behaviors Mandy has confirmed that Killer's playing the newest version of chess in the game, which is just holding a 3-gen for 10 minutes until you can use the abandoned feature. Apparently, them being told that the match is a win is not true. Apparently, it's literally counted as a loss. And I don't like either of these things, personally. I, first of all, would like to say that I think that this whole desire to try to come up with the most annoying way to win, things like the chess meta, as much as I like to harp on variety, I just don't know if I could ever say that 3-genning as a strategy on its own, the way that it's done in this manner, in the old manner, is valid. It's a pretty it's pretty bad. It's about as bad as like 4-man slugging, where it's like the reason that countermeasures in the game are being developed by the developers to handle this kind of thing is because of how miserable it is. I actually didn't know this until this news came out. I actually, when I looked at it, I would have thought that oppression would be kind of like Jolt, where it could really eat that shit up really fast, and it'd be hard to keep track of what generators have received too many regression events. But I digress. I guess it doesn't work that way, and I could easily see this negatively affecting that perk. The real solution is I think that these abandoned features, just stop counting them as wins and losses. Please stop doing that. That's not true. When the killer slugs everybody and there's no play to be made, yes, that is a survivor loss. On the other hand, survivor players, if you're hiding for 10 minutes to try to get the killer to DC, it shouldn't count as a win for you. Sorry, buddy. And killers trying to hold 3-gens for 10 minutes, same thing. Shouldn't count as a win. Sorry, buddy. Should just say draw. The game should just psychologically just confirm that for people and say that it's like a draw or a no contest result or something, as opposed to a win or a loss, because when you make it a win or a loss, you create a new win condition for one side or another, and they will abuse that. There are certain players that don't care. Back, in the day of Chess Merchant, it didn't matter that it wasn't the most lucrative win. Those people didn't care about that. That's fine, but like, I think there should be healthier avenues for them to come up with these alternative win cons. Not this. This is a pretty nasty thing. So it'll probably be addressed very swiftly. That's another thing. A lot of people have complained about Hens and Ots making their videos on this. I don't really think that hell, one of them literally confirmed that he sat on this. He knew you could do this, and he sat on it for a little while because he didn't want to, until it seems like it was starting to spread a little bit more. It's not just them. People give content creators a little bit too much credit for how they influence this game. I just have to say, that they do influence it, but in some cases you're not giving your fellow non-content creator players, I guess maybe, or some content creators say this, I guess I shouldn't quite put it that way, you're not giving regular players enough credit. Some people just do this shit for the love of the game, not for content, and it spreads on Discord, it spreads on Reddit, it spreads on Twitter. It doesn't just come out of YouTube videos, okay? In fact, a lot of the time YouTube videos are late to the game on this stuff. They were late to the game on Chess Merchant before, and this has been happening a little bit. It's not really going to be widespread. I would say that it's a little bit more, it's not impossible. It's not like the hardest thing you could do to play as Killer. It's actually less skill based than I would say. 4-man slugging, for example, is actually kind of skillful. It's not easy to pull off. You have to do it in a smart way. You have to play smart to do it. It's annoying, but you have to play smart to do it. This, on the other hand, is similar. It's similar. There will be a lot of people that will attempt it and lose the 3-gen. There will be a lot of people that will attempt it and just not succeed. They could have every advantage in their corner and they just don't have the macro game, the hyper focus on it to do it. Then there's a lot that will. I'm just saying, it's not, I don't think it's going to be a super mainstream thing. Honestly, most people are casual and they're not going to opt to do this kind of thing. So all in all, I don't know if I would super say that this is the this is the future. It'll be addressed 100%, but I don't think they should count it as a win or a loss on either end. I think that this specific inactivity victory should be a draw, if anything. I think that's really the biggest indicator here. So moving on to point 2, little discussion, short one, trying to keep it concise. This sentiment that I get from a lot of, I'm not going to say Killer players because I don't like doing us versus them shit, but people in the community. I agree with this post. There's this sentiment that Killer not worth buying if Killer no strong. Now, that's up to you, but personally, I actually lament that I don't know if we're ever going to have a Killer that's just released with the intention of them being a mid-tier kind of killer. Because I like to play mid-tier killers. I like playing like Sadako and Pig, Ghostface and stuff. But it sucks that so many of these killers now that get released, they've all got to have some crazy power, something nutso that covers half the map or completely circumvents a loop or is a projectile, and you know, lest the devs fear that they're going to be 100 posts on like the subreddit or Twitter going, this killer's just not really worth it. They're just kind of terrible. God, why would I play this killer when I could play Kaneki? Now, this is actually kind of gets me into a little bit of the discourse with Kaneki. I actually think Kaneki's release was one of the most insane discussions I've ever seen. On one end, there are survivors that act like it's impossible to play against Kaneki, and that Kaneki needs to be like Skull Merchant tier gutted. That's crazy. He's not that bad. There were some people that were saying Kaneki was stronger than Nurse. I thought that was really funny because Nurse just completely ignores terrain and walls and things like that. Kaneki does at least have to contend with solid objects, despite the fact that he can sling himself, shot himself around. That sentiment is a little bit disingenuous itself. And then on the other side, killers. There were killers that were acting like Kaneki's screen-sized reticle auto-aim was fine. I didn't even like playing as him at launch because I quickly noticed that I would be trying to actually do something kind of fun with the power, shoot it at a wall, but I would hit some survivor that was in frame that I didn't even fucking see, like somebody trying to set up for a flashlight save. So you might be thinking, oh, that's sick, you could hit them too. Yeah, but I don't actually think it's good when I didn't even know they were goddamn there. Like, I actually think that's kind of insane. And sometimes you just end up doing the kidnap tech on the survivor that you were chasing. It just wasn't good. He needed adjustments. Now he does require a degree of skill. I know I've had some people in my comments. I have hit up a couple more Kaneki games. Again, I'm not spamming as this killer. I'm not a dash enjoyer, but I do think that right now he's just in a pretty decent spot. The main issue being his vault speed, which is kind of crazy. His vault speed when he's enraged is basically a scamper, and that's nuts. He is so much stronger than Wesker in that regard. He's like Wesker, but if Wesker were like infinitely better, because Wesker's vault is not like that. Wesker's vault is reactable, as it should be. As it should be, honestly. Scamper is a terrible mechanic. It encourages the worst kind of gameplay. But anyway, Kaneki was just a killer that like really was divisive. He was so divisive, and that was one thing that I think was frustrating about his release. I think on the Survivor end, a lot of the complaints were also the Kaneki was an incredibly hyped killer, and a lot of people wanted to play him, and because of that, he kind of got spammed. Like 8 out of every 10 games would be Kaneki. So I also think that magnified the Survivor complaints a lot. I know that I am normally quite patient about things like this, but that I was getting, at the very least, I was just mostly saying, yeah, I'm kind of tired of seeing him. I wish I could see somebody else. It's refreshing to see somebody else and get a break sometimes, because it's just every game, it's the same perks, it's the same him screaming at the top of his lungs, unless somebody's playing their Ise skin, which I appreciate quite a bit because hers is so much better. But yeah, anyway, this isn't really about Kaneki though. It's about the general sentiment that some killer players have that, oh, behavior just nerf that killer never get nothing. Now, if you want to talk about perks, I actually think you might be on something. A lot of gen regression perks are nerfed with no compensation on the Survivor end. There's not much to be done outside of toolboxes, in my opinion. I think that would make it pretty good, but you know, I will say that some of the complaints about generator regression being nerfed are a little overblown. Pain resonance is still a strong perk. Pop is even still a decent perk if the killer has good mobility. You just don't need to kick every fucking gen you see. But there's, you know, in this post it mentions a good example here, like Twins has been buffed, only has been buffed in the last patch. She didn't get the crazy broken version released from PTB, sure, but that was actually maybe a contender for nerfs. That shit was insane. But Twins has always been like an A tier killer. They're very good. The way they play is clunky and can be boring to people, but they're very good. Houndmaster, very similar to Twins, more fun to play, less clunky, I would say, but Houndmaster is very much like Twins, a low A tier, strong killer. Like, Houndmaster's, a lot of survivors absolutely despise Houndmaster. 8 months into the game, Dracula continues to be a Swiss Army knife that I don't think any of his powers are particularly oppressive, but Dracula has crazy adaptability. I don't even think Dracula has a map that he is weak on, actually. Like, he can change up his game, and that's his strength. And I think that's actually kind of cool. It's kind of similar to Vecna. I think Vecna is slept on sometimes in that way. Vecna has tools to circumvent bullshit. That Billy, for example, who is an S tier killer because of his mobility, and Kaneki do not have. They go into certain maps and they suck. And then you have Larry, you know, he got buffed last year and he's very strong now. He used to be much harder he's always been strong, but he used to be a much harder to play, but now he's just strong and a lot easier, a lot more accessible. I think that it's unfair to say that behavior does nothing but nerf killers, or like acting like behavior does bait and switches on DLC. Like, I have only seen these killers get strong. Hell, these nerfs, quote unquote nerfs that he's received, many argue are actually buffs when you learn him. And I think that's fine. I actually think that killers like Kaneki and Billy and Blight and Nurse should be a little bit more difficult to learn because they're very strong. So, you know, that's my opinion on that. I don't agree with the oh man, they're just gutting every killer. They are very much not. They have gutted one. Even Chucky didn't really get gutted. Chucky went from being like crazy out the gate to a little bit weaker, and then he got nerfed from like an A tier killer to like an A minus upper B tier killer, which is still fine. That's my biggest argument. I think that some people act like a killer being B tier is unacceptable, and it's like, no, it's more than acceptable. It's fine. It's fine to have killers that are harder to play and have to work harder. There's nothing wrong with that. I hope you've all enjoyed this slightly different format. I'm just experimenting with some different types of video to put out every now and again, and I thought a reaction to some community topics on Reddit and different forms of social media would be interesting. Next time I'll probably focus a little bit more on actually reacting to the topic. This time I just kind of used the posts as a general guideline to just yap about my opinions on various things. But I hope you've enjoyed it. GG's well played. Good luck in your next match. And let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.